ai te kātu ʻōlelo to kātu noho ana. Na ka ʻōlelo ana i hoʻala hou, ka mālama ana i ka loʻi, ka hula ana i ka hula. Ke kule ana o nā kānawai no ka wai ai ana, ki hoʻala i ana ma ka ʻōlelo Hawaiʻi.
Kanu mai, loa aya ka ke tau. Ke ʻōlelo kako i ka ʻōlelo Hawaiʻi. ʻōlelo mau na makua me nā kupuna. No nā kupuna I hala. Hiki lako ke lohe a mako e ʻōlelo nei. Ke hauʻoli nei lako I ka lohe ana ka mako ma leo makamai.
Ua ha'awi ia wau ke ia aloha, ke ia hiki, ke ia mahalo I ka ʻōlelo o nā kupuna mai nā kupuna mai. A na'u ke kule ana e ha'awi I ko'u mau hanauna a hanauna. O ia no, a e mau ana ka ʻōlelo.
A language of explorers, of scholars, astronomers, scientists, and warriors. A language of businessmen, lawyers, doctors, farmers, statesmen, and philosophers. But above all, a language beloved by its speakers that is once again growing and thriving through generations. Today, we kick off our series analyzing Indigenous American languages with a brief look at the history of the Hawaiian language. Welcome to Indigenous History Now, the channel where we discuss the histories, cultures, and languages of the indigenous peoples of the Western Hemisphere and parts of the Pacific. Before we get started, let's hear a quick word from today's video sponsor, Helm News. If you're watching this video, you're probably like me, interested in learning other languages. I've been studying various languages for almost a decade now, and one of my favorite ways to study is by reading in my target language. Grammar books and language apps are a good start, but they almost never prepare you for a real conversation. I can't tell you how many times I've come across slang, idioms, or turns of phrase that the grammar books didn't prep me for. That's where Helm News comes in. Helm is a language learning site that lets you practice real language as spoken by real people, and keep up to date on the news to boot. For just $4 a month, Helm gives you access to over 700 fresh news articles every day from around the world, ad-free. You can read the latest on politics, sports, science, culture, and more in 10 different languages, and adjust it for your learning level. Whether you're a beginner who needs bite-sized summaries, intermediate and looking to grow your skills, or are ready for the full complexities and nuances of real native speech, Helm tailors your article selections to meet your needs. As you read, you can tap on unfamiliar words or phrases to see a translation and definition, as well as turn on audio pronunciations for some listening practice. And the best part, if you sign up on the Helm website using the promo code in the description, you'll get 15% off the price, and you'll be supporting the channel. Once you've signed up, you can download the Helm app on your phone through the Apple or Android app stores. Just be sure to do the initial sign up through the website if you want the discount and want to support the channel. Go to helm.news and use our promo code to take your language journey to the next level. Now back to the show. ʻōlelo Hawaiʻi, or Hawaiian, is the native language of the Hawaiian archipelago. It is a Marquesic language of the Eastern Polynesian language family, which itself is part of the Greater Austronesian language family. The closest relatives of ʻōlelo Hawaiʻi are Marquesan, spoken in the Marquesas Islands, and Mangarevan, spoken in the Gambier Islands. Based on historical linguistic reconstructions, we can say the Hawaiian language is about 1,000 years old. That's when it branched off from its ancestors as its own distinct language. Now, this doesn't necessarily mean that Polynesians first arrived in Hawaii 1,000 years ago. The date of first arrival is unknown and still a matter of debate. Some estimates do say it was around the 1000s, but others put it as far back as the 300s CE. Whenever people first arrived, they weren't speaking Hawaiian. They were probably speaking Proto-Marquesic, an ancestor to Hawaiian, and it's likely that they were living in Hawaii for some time before their language evolved into its own distinct form separate from its Marquesic relatives. Within Hawaiian, there were historically several different dialects spoken throughout the archipelago. Pretty much every island had their own variety of pronunciation and vocabulary, though they were all still mutually intelligible. However, due to the language loss of the 20th century, which we'll discuss in a second, practically only two distinct dialects remain today: Ni'ihau Hawaiian, which is spoken on the island of Ni'ihau, and I have not yet seen a set name for the other dialect, but let's call it mainstream Hawaiian, which is spoken everywhere else and taught in the school systems. Some island-to-island diversity in pronunciation and vocabulary may still remain among some speakers of the mainstream dialect, but not a whole lot. Niʻihau Hawaiian has largely retained older pronunciations. It's generally said that Niʻihau pronunciation is more similar to what First Contact era Hawaiian from 200 years ago would have sounded like. And Niʻihau speakers have a somewhat infamous reputation for being fast talkers. They can understand speakers from other islands, but it's often hard for other speakers to understand them. For most of its history, Hawaiian had no written form. This changed in the 1820s when Christian missionaries arrived in the Hawaiian kingdom and developed a written alphabet in collaboration with Hawaiian speakers, a project that was enthusiastically endorsed and supported by the Hawaiian government. Upon his accession to the throne in 1825, King Kamehameha III famously proclaimed, "O ko'u opuni he opuni palapala ko'u. My kingdom shall be a literate one." It took a few years for the missionaries to standardize their alphabet, known as the Pi'apa, but a standard form was reached in 1826 and taught to the population through government-funded schools all across the islands. This literacy campaign was a massive success. By as early as 1834, the literacy rate in Hawai'i is estimated to have been greater than 90%. By some accounts, the Hawaiian kingdom had the most literate population in the entire world during the second half of the 19th century. This demand for literature was satisfied by presses and publishers, which began operation in the 1830s, pumping out Hawaiian language books and especially newspapers. Over 100 different Hawaiian language newspapers would circulate with weekly or daily publication over the next 90 years, publishing around 125,000 pages in that time. This makes Hawaiian one of the best documented indigenous American languages. You can still read these papers today in online archives, which I'll link in the description. Regular contact with the Western world brought profound social and political changes to the Hawaiian kingdom over the course of the 19th century, including a sizable influx of American, European, and East Asian immigrants. Most of these immigrants arrived as laborers to work the sugar plantations beginning in the late 1860s. This brought many new languages to Hawai'i, which, in the ethnically and linguistically diverse space of the plantations, mixed together to form a new Creole language for common communication, Hawaiian Pidgin. However, until the end of the 19th century, these many changes did not undermine the position of ʻōlelo Hawai'i in society. Off the plantations, Hawaiian remained the dominant language of government, courts, schools, business, and much of daily life, spoken alike by natives and many of the immigrants. This situation began to change, however, in 1893, when a group of American businessmen, with support from the U.S. government, staged a coup and deposed the reigning monarch, Queen Liliuokalani. They organized a provisional government and in 1896 passed Act 57. This law declared English the official medium of education, and the only language that could be used to teach in schools without express authorization from the Department of Education, authorization that was never given to Hawaiian. This law effectively outlawed the use of Hawaiian in all schools, public and private. The United States annexed Hawaii in 1898 and kept this law on the books. For the next 90 years, Hawaiian children were punished for speaking their own language, and the transmission of Hawaiian between generations declined precipitously. This suppression of Hawaiian is what led to English and Pidgin taking over as the dominant first languages in the islands around the 1920s. The laws were softened over the years, but the last legal restrictions limiting Hawaiian use in schools were not repealed until 1986. Hawaiian had once been a language with possibly up to 1 million speakers, but by the 1970s there were fewer than 1,000 left, most of whom were over the age of 60. Only on the island of Niʻihau, which has never had a recorded population greater than 200, was Hawaiian still spoken as the primary language of the community and still being passed on to children. In 1985, there were 32 Hawaiian-speaking children in all of Hawaii, including Niʻihau. Literacy rates and general educational outcomes among native Hawaiians had also declined due to their poor treatment in school. issues that many in the community still struggle with today. Fortunately, the language was kept alive through this time by the diligent commitment of elders and knowledge holders, such as Mary Kawena Pukui, who in her 91 years published over 50 books and other scholarly works relating to Hawaiian language and culture. She and others tirelessly worked to preserve and pass on their traditions to future generations. Their work laid the bedrock for the emergence in the 1970s of what is known as the Hawaiian Renaissance, a time of revival and reassertion of Hawaiian culture, identity, language, and activism that began to reverse the trend of language loss. The turning point came later in 1983. Many Hawaiian language educators had recognized that the only way for Hawaiian to survive was through transmission to children. Thus, that year, a group of such educators, Larry Kimura, Kawanoi Kamana, and William Pila Wilson, founded the Aha Punanaleo organization. Inspired by the Maori language Kohangareo system in Aotearoa, New Zealand, the Punanaleo system, which translates to language nest, is a network of fully immersion Hawaiian language preschools. In the early days, native-speaking elders were brought in as teachers. This actually made the schools illegal, as these elders didn't have the proper state-mandated teaching credentials, and were very unlikely to obtain them. Thus, in the early years, the schools were very controversial and received considerable pressure from the state to shut down. The schools didn't have much of a choice, though, as these elders were the only people left who spoke Hawaiian. After a coordinated lobbying effort against stiff opposition, the laws were eventually changed, and the Punanaleo preschools thrived. As the kids aged into elementary school, their parents put pressure on the state to create an immersion system within the public schools. The state didn't want to, though, and dragged their feet. This led the parents to boycott the public schools until the state gave in. But this was a process that had to be repeated every time the kids aged into the next school level. The parents had to boycott the elementary schools, they had to boycott the middle schools, and they had to boycott the high schools. Now, keep in mind that in 1978, the state of Hawaii adopted a new constitution that declared Hawaiian an official language of the state, co-official with English. Thus, even 20 years after declaring Hawaiian an official language of the state, that same state government was doing its best not just to not support, but to actively suppress Hawaiian language education. To this day, the state government remains reluctant to honor Hawaiian's position as a constitutionally mandated official language. Despite the state's lack of enthusiasm to support Hawaiian language education, by 1999, the first class of students to have received their entire grade school education in Hawaiian graduated high school. The public school immersion system, called the Hawaiian Language Immersion Program, originally consisted of an immersion track within the existing English language schools. Eventually, though, separate schools dedicated to Hawaiian language immersion were constructed, called Kaiapuni schools. Today, there are 22 public Kaiapuni schools and 6 Kaiapuni charter schools. In 1989, the University of Hawaii at Hilo founded the Halekua Mo'o Hawaiian Language Center and offered the first Hawaiian medium bachelor's program. The first bachelor's program conducted entirely in Hawaiian, not just studying Hawaiian. They added a graduate school and a master's program in 1998, Kahakaula o Ke'elikolani College of Hawaiian Language. This was the first graduate program offered in any Indigenous American language. In 2006, they expanded again with a PhD program. This means that a child today can receive their entire education, preschool through doctorate, in the Hawaiian language. To date, it is the only Indigenous American language where this is possible. This remarkable resurgence has earned Hawaiian a spot as one of the most, if not the most, successful revitalizations of an Indigenous American language. There are now an estimated 30,000 speakers, up from less than 1,000 just 40 years ago. A 2010 survey found that over 24,000 households claimed Hawaiian as their dominant language. Annual enrollment in the Punanaleo and Kaiapuni schools was about 2,500, and 8,000 schools were seeking Hawaiian language either as a topic or a medium of study in higher education. There are still struggles and resistance to Hawaiian's growth, but the future for the language looks bright indeed. Thank you all for watching. More videos exploring the grammar of Hawaiian are to follow, so stay tuned to learn more. As always, if you have any suggestions for Indigenous American languages you want to see videos on, leave us a comment. If you like this content and want to help the channel grow, please consider supporting us on Patreon, link in the description. Please don't forget to hit that thumbs up button, subscribe, tap the bell, all those wonderful things that help us out in the algorithm. Mahalo nui loa for watching, and I will see you next time.